For our next problem, we have another very long bar, a division bar all the way across. That division bar says you have to do the entire top and then the entire bottom, and then you can divide. So you have to do the whole top and the whole bottom, like as if there's another set of invisible parentheses. Okay, so P parentheses. So I'm going to work the whole top. On the top, there is a set of parentheses that I can do here, right? 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Opposite sign, so I'll subtract and take the bigger sign. On the bottom, there isn't any parentheses other than the negative 5 as a parentheses, but inside there you can't do anything. So we're going to go ahead and call that good for my P for the top and P for the bottom. E exponents. There is an exponent. I have negative 2 cubed. Now, negative 2 cubed, if you need to do that off to the side, that's negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4 times negative 2, or negative 8. So this whole thing turns out to be negative 8. Now that's still being multiplied by the 5 because there's an invisible multiply sign between any number in parentheses. So the E step is done for both the top and the bottom. Next is the M and D. Now, left to right, I multiply and divide. I have a multiply right here. I'm going to go ahead and take the negative 5 times the negative 8. And a negative times a negative we know is a positive. And 5 times 8 is 40, so that got rid of all of the negatives on that second 5 and the 8. Left to right, on the bottom, I also have a negative 3 times a negative 5, and a negative times a negative is a positive. And then the next step is add and subtract. So left to right, I'm getting 35 on the top, and let's see, what is that, 7, negative 7 on the bottom. So that's add and subtract. Now, because it took us so long to do that, that was basically a PEMDAS within the first parentheses on the numerator and a PEMDAS in the parentheses on the denominator. Now I can actually divide, which was our last step. 35 divided by 7 is negative 5, and that is my answer, because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. PEMDAS again. So the next one, inside the parentheses, I've got 2 set of parentheses. That gets me negative 2 squared on the first parentheses. 3 minus 5 is also negative 2, and this time cubed. So that's the P. The E step, I can do my exponents. Negative 2 squared means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. Negative 2 cubed, we just did that over here in the corner. I'm not sure if you remember that. We turned out to be negative 8, so I'm not going to bother doing it again. So that's the E exponent. Next, multiply and divide. So I have a couple multiplies. Negative 2 times positive 4 is negative 8. And a negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 8 is 24. And then the very last step is add and subtract. Negative 8 plus 24 is positive 16. I subtract my values and take the bigger sign, which is positive. Now these next two look a little bit simple. I just need to remind you what an absolute value is. If you have a negative times a negative 3 with parentheses, this is something that we've been dealing with a lot. Add a line, change the sign. We already know that from a previous lesson. This is just 3. But that's not the same as when you have an absolute value, okay? Inside the P parentheses, there wasn't much to do on the one we just finished, but inside the parentheses here, it's not really a parentheses, it's these bars. These are absolute value bars, which is the distance from 0. So if you have negative 3 on a number line, how far away is that from 0? Well, it's 3. Or basically, the absolute value just makes whatever inside the bars positive. So that inside the bars becomes positive 3, but you still have this negative out in front. So the answer is going to be negative 3. The absolute value makes it positive, but bring down the negative. That's not the same as the one we just did. Negative times a negative 3 is a positive 3. That's with parentheses. But with absolute value bars, you actually have to evaluate the absolute value. So let's do the next one. P, E, MDAS. Okay, so P. Inside these parentheses, they're technically not just parentheses, they're absolute value bars. I have to evaluate the inside first. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. Everything else stays the same. Now I have to evaluate these absolute value bars. The absolute value bars just makes whatever is inside the absolute value positive. So it was negative 2, so now it's going to be positive 2. So that's P. E, there is no exponents. M and D, I do have a multiply and divide. Negative 2 times 2 is 4, negative 4. And then add and subtract. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. And that is my final answer. On the next one, we have, let me write out my PEMDAS again. Inside these absolute value bars, we have to work out the inside. So I have, see, negative 25 minus negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared means negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. Okay? So positive 16 is not, it says minus because there's a minus from the original problem. A negative times a negative is a positive 16. That's in the purple, but the minus still comes down. A lot of students have a hard time with that one. Still working on inside the parentheses. Now I have to subtract. And negative 25 minus 16 is a negative 41. And we have 8 minus. Now we actually have to do the absolute value bars. The absolute value of negative 41 is positive 41. So P is finally done. There's no E. There's no multiply and divide. So now I just take 8 minus 41 and I'm getting negative 33. And that concludes this lesson on ordered operations.